Hello, everyone. Welcome to the lecture video on attachment theory and attachment styles. So I'm happy to introduce the first theory to all of you, a theory that I think is extremely important and something that I came across earlier this year. So I'm an avid reader. And due to some situations and circumstances that happened earlier in the year, like I always do is I always reflect on things and why things happen and what could be my contribution to the problem or the conflict and that sort of. And so I began to what I always do is go to my books to try to find answers. I have a large library of books, and I remembered that I came across that I had a book that I had purchased years ago that I hadn't read, and it's this book called Attached. It's the science of adult attachment and how it can help you keep and find love by author Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. So as I was reading the book, just to try to understand answers and understand, because I was in a relationship at the time and trying to understand why my partner was behaving the way that she was and how her behavior affected my emotions and my behavior. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to reflect and try to find answers and try to learn from the experience and try to grow as a person and become a better person. So the book Attached introduced me to the theory of attachment theory. And as I began to read chapter by chapter, I read the book in a few days, and I was just astonished and at the accuracy of how attachment styles that we develop when we're children could affect us as adults, not only in our romantic relationships, but in our interpersonal relationships, which is what this course is all about. So in reading the chapters, every chapter was just an awakening for me. It was just a great learning opportunity, not only understanding what attachment theory is, but also figuring out what my attachment style was, and then also to reflect on my past and my childhood and my relationship with my parents, and could anything in my past history could give me clues as to why in certain interpersonal relationships certain things get triggered and how I react in those type of situations, but also how I react to rewards and disagreements or conflict in a relationship, but in an interpersonal relationship. So I've concluded that I think attachment theory is something that everyone should know. It's the book's been out for a while now, but it's interesting that not very many people know about attachment theory, and not very many people even bother to do self-reflection or inner work. And I think that those individuals that don't take the time to try to learn about themselves and learn about their childhood and the relationship with their parents and the experiences that you've had growing up and the results of your interpersonal relationships could continue to affect your future. And it's I want to challenge you to, as you're listening to this and as we are getting ready to go through the lecture and watch the videos, I hope that you take the time to really try to use this as an opportunity for self-awareness, an opportunity to learn more about yourself, to learn how you're wired and how your childhood could affect what your personality is like today. And I really think that, you know, learning attachment theory and how it affects your interpersonal relationships today, I think will help you. And if you're open-minded and if you're a person that will receive this, I believe that it can help you. I've already had a few students in my other class that I recommended this book, and we were having discussions, and those students have made huge improvements, not only in their relationship with their boyfriends, but also they've become better communicators in the relationship and also understood their partners better because they are able to identify their partner's attachment style and understand why they behave the way they do. Why do they do the things that they do? Why, when conflict happens in a relationship, which is guaranteed to happen, why they react the way they do. And so I've been told by these students that it's helped them to better understand their partner and how to better communicate with their partner effectively. And also it's allowed them to figure out what their attachment style is, and also to be mindful of how their behavior affects their partner and could potentially trigger certain emotions and that sort of thing. So I feel that if self-awareness is the beginning of a transformational journey or a personal growth journey for everyone, the reality is that not everybody wants to go down this path of personal growth and transformation, because a lot of people either they think that it's not necessary, I don't need to know about my past, I don't really care, it doesn't affect my future, when it does. And it's unfortunate that people who are fixed minded, meaning that they're not open to new ideas and new concepts, new theories, or you know, to be able to do some inner work, they're the ones that are going to miss out, because at the end of the day, we value relationships, not just romantic ones, but also interpersonal relationships. We as humans are wired to have connection and relationships with people, whether romantic or not. We have parents, and we want to be able to have success in our relationships, whether it's with our parents, whether it's our brothers and sisters, our friends, our close friends, our romantic partners, our colleagues at work. And I think attachment theory does give you clues to better understand human behavior, human nature, and understand people a lot better. And I'm a firm believer that everyone should set it a goal to try to understand human behavior and human nature, because it explains the phenomena that you see around you. It explains why people act and do the things that they do, why people have certain patterns, certain tendencies, why they react in certain situations the way that they do. And I think attachment theory is one of them, as well as a lot of other theories that are out there, can help explain human behavior and human phenomena, and then it'll make sense to you. But you as a person will also become more compassionate, more empathetic, more understanding when you encounter people that are behaving a certain way. You'll know why. You'll have a better understanding why, and hopefully you can educate them, as I always do with the people around me. Is I'm constantly always educating them on the things that I've learned about for myself, but I want to share it with everybody else, because I want everybody to evolve, to grow, to become the better versions of themselves, and also to heal from any past trauma or past abuse, or to find healing so that they can have success in their life, with their relationships, with their friends, but more importantly, our romantic partners, right? Because most people want love and most people want success in relationships, but no, there is no one manual of how to do a relationship right. So it's, I think you'll enjoy this lecture, and all I ask is just keep an open mind. And as I'm talking, I'd like for you to tap into your archive in your subconscious mind and try to recall past experiences from childhood to your past relationships and that sort of thing. See if any of these things that I'm going to talk about resonate with you. See if they trigger some type of emotions and that sort of thing. And then I believe that attachment theory, once we have a really good understanding of it, then we can understand attachment styles. And once we identify our own attachment style, and you're going to have an opportunity to take a quiz as part of this assignment to figure out your own attachment style, and then you'll have a chance to write about it. But also, I believe that attachment style then creates the foundation for us. And there's the four attachment styles. It doesn't mean that we're going to be within that attachment style forever. If you have one of the three that are necessarily the non-secure attachment style, then know this, that you can whatever your attachment style is, you can get to the secure attachment. You can change it if you're willing to do the work and willing to do some self-reflection and analysis about yourself. And you can change that and become the best version of yourself so that you can show up a better person in your relationships and your friendships and at work, but also so that you can attract the right people, right? Because we can't change people. We can't change people. People have to want to do the work themselves. But what we can do is control what we can control, and that's our thoughts, attitudes, and behavior in our own personal growth journey. And if you focus on improving yourself and bettering yourself as a person, and nobody's perfect, and we all have flaws and we all have imperfections, but if you focus on becoming better, a better individual, a better person, especially upgrading your knowledge base and your toolbox, I call it, on how to be a better person in relationships or interpersonal relationships, you're going to have much more success than the individuals that are refusing or rejecting this type of knowledge and don't want to do the inner work. So, and then the attachment style, then I believe in this class, what I'm trying to do is connect the pieces to the puzzle, right? So this class is about interpersonal relationships. And yes, the book is talking about a lot of things like verbal communication, nonverbal communication. Obviously, the book is talking about self-identity and self-concept. But I think where the shortcoming of the textbook is that it doesn't address a theory like attachment theory and how all the other stuff that's in the chapters of the book are relevant, but yet I think it's missing the fact that we need to start here with attachment theory and attachment styles and understand ourselves, because how we communicate today with our everyday interpersonal relationships is, I believe, the way that we communicate and talk is contingent upon, or it actually is a result of our self-awareness, attachment style, our past experience with our parents, our childhood experiences, our teenage experiences, the types of relationships that we've had up until now. All of that plays a role in how we communicate today, why we trust certain people, why we don't trust certain people, why we have trust issues, why we have anxiety, why we have passive aggressive tendencies and that sort of thing. So it's this class, I don't want it to be like you're just here to learn how to talk to people. We are learning how to talk to people, but there's what I call effective communication. You cannot have effective communication until you understand a little bit more about yourself, your own tendencies, your own triggers, your own emotions, your own blind spots, your cognitive dissonance, your confirmation bias, and how attachment style and all these different parts play a role of how we show up and present ourselves today. So I'm excited to connect the first piece of the puzzle, and that's with attachment styles. And then this is going to lead to the discussion board number 1, which is about identifying, which is the big five personalities. And you'll have a chance to then do a quiz that will help you figure out what your personality is, trait, right? And there's 5 of them. And then that will lead into another, what I think is a very important concept, is Carl Jung's 16 personality archetypes, which he argues that every individual falls into one of these 16 personality archetypes. So as you can see, we're going to be connecting the dots between your childhood to your personality and how you're wired to your archetype, and then connect it from there, and then build on that and go into the next phase, in which we're going to learn about the 5 love languages, right? And how you feel valued, appreciated, you feel heard, someone who sees your worth, and that sort of thing. And it's based on the 5 love languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. But the 5 love languages not only applies to romantic in a sense, but also at work, in the workplace, right? So the 5 love languages is not just for love, but it's for work, friendship, parenting, and for single people as well. So then that's going to build up onto the other theories that I'm going to talk about. So I hope you're excited about it. I'm very excited about this stuff. I love reading about these type of things because the reality is I love people. I like being around people. I like communicating with people. I enjoy having a broad social network of friends and acquaintances and colleagues. And I'm always fascinated by trying to learn about people's history, people's story, people's tendencies, people's patterns, how people show up in their interpersonal relationships, and always fascinated by trying to learn about them and their patterns, their tendencies, and just for me, for my own personal growth as well too, and to continue learning about human behavior and human nature. And so I love studying people. I love studying how people think, how people are wired, how people behave. Love studying about the subconscious mind and how the subconscious mind influences 90% of our behavior and the things that we do. And we're going to jump into that, I think, in week 2. So I love talking about these type of things. And then all of that, when you put the puzzle together, then you can have interpersonal relationships course like this, and how to be an effective communicator, because the end goal is we want to be socially connected. We want to be connected to people, unless you really don't like people. If you don't like people, then I can't help you with that, right? That's something you have to deal with. But most people want to have friends. Most people want to be in love. Most people want to have good relationships with their parents and their brothers and sisters and their coworkers at work. And the question is, but how do we do that? What are the things that we have to learn about ourselves and learn strategies that we can put in our toolbox to help us have really good relationships around us? Because there's health benefits to having healthy, successful relationships, right? Less stress, stronger immune system, right? Happy hormones are being released to your body. So there's actually health benefits to actually having friendships and relationships that are healthy and positive. And if you've ever heard of the blue zones, one of the common pillars of blue zones, which is these blue zones around the world, are places where there's the most centenarians living in those blue zones, right? People that are living at 100 years old or longer. And those individuals, one of the reasons why they have such longevity is that one of the pillars is that they are connected to community, connected to relationships. They have healthy relationships, not necessarily romantic, but they're socially active in their community. They have a strong support system, and it's a big part of why they have such longevity, right? Because there is research out there that shows that people that are isolated, people that have no connection to other humans or are socially isolated or don't have relationships with people, in the sense that they're loners and they're just very isolated, right? We know that those people suffer from depression or anxiety, among other issues, but then they also have a shorter lifespan, right? Because we are meant to grow. We are meant to be constantly connected to people. And so there is a benefit for me in introducing these concepts, because I want people to live long. I want to live to be 100 or longer. And I want all of you to have longevity and have health and vitality in your body. And I think that's just one of the components, right, is interpersonal relationships. So let's get right to it. So feel free to take notes. This video will be uploaded on Canvas, so you'll have it to refer back to it. Feel free to email me on Canvas if you have any insights, any questions. What do you think about this? What do you think about this lecture? Tell me your thoughts, and I'm excited to see what your assignment is going to be about. So just thank you for being in this class, because it's a sold out class, over 45 students. And I'm just excited that 45 new people are going to be learning about some of the theories that I care about the most, that I think are very important in contributing to a healthy life and a positive life for all of us. So let's get right to it. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, so what is attachment theory? So attachment theory is a theory. Attachment theory is focused on relationships and the bonds between people, particularly long-term relationships, including those between a parent and a child and between romantic partners. So it's the relationship and the bonds that you have between your parent, whether hopefully it's with both parents, but we know that we live in a society now where, unfortunately, due to the high rate of divorce, due to the absence of fathers or mothers in some cases, but primarily fathers, that the primary caregiver is in some cases it's a two-parent home, in other cases it's a single father, in other cases it's a single mother, and then in other cases, in an extreme case, it's a grandparent, right? So I have a 15-year-old son, and he has two friends that are being raised by grandparents, and then one of them's being raised by his older sister, right? And so there's an absence of the parents in their lives, although they do have a primary caregiver, and that's the grandparents and the older sister. And so the attachment theory focuses on what was the relationship from the time that the child was born and up until the child was able to become independent. And the influences or the experiences of that relationship do affect your relationships and your interpersonal relationships later in life. And so including your romantic partners, right? So very important, just a very important theory, because there is research that says that between the ages of the time that we're born until the age of 8, we are in a phase in which we're downloading programming, meaning that your personality, your identity, some parts of your self-concept are established between the time that you're born into the age of 8. And it's during that time in which we're trying to make sense of the world. We're trying to, if for those of you that have a brother or sister that's an infant or a baby, or you have friends that are just they're newly parents, if you look at the child, they're just giving you that look like, who are you? And they're trying to make sense of who you are, but also they're filled with curiosity and just this observation of, okay, now I'm in this world here and I have to make sense of it. And so between the ages of 0 and 8, you're focused on pretty much just observing, listening, tasting, hearing, and we're just downloading the behavior that we're witnessing, right? Whether it was healthy behaviors, or whether it was traumatic behavior or negative behavior or toxic behavior, we're watching all of this, we're listening to it, we're observing all of this, and all of that is being imprinted in our subconscious mind in the form of a downloaded program. So we download our programs from 0 to 8, which then becomes rooted in our subconscious mind, which then has, it starts to develop our personality. It starts to develop our identity. Okay, so think back to what your relationship was like with your primary caregiver, whoever that is, and think about what are some of the things that, if you can recollect, was that experience positive? Was that experience negative? I'm a very transparent person, so I don't mind sharing about my childhood or about my experiences, because I think it's healthy to share, but it's also important for me to share with you examples, because I'm not perfect and I have imperfections. And so in my case, my parents were always working. So they were immigrants from Mexico. And when they got here, they were constantly working 2 or 3 jobs. So I had very little contact with my parents because they were always working to try to provide. And back in the days, when the time that I was born, immigration was at a different place. So there was just a lot going on. So they didn't have a lot of services. They had to find employment under the table and that sort of thing. So it was a very different time compared to today. Immigration today is a lot different today, right? People can go get jobs, and people are protected in certain places like Los Angeles is sort of like a sanctuary city, right? And California itself is pro-immigration, right? So they protect migrants and immigrants that are coming from Mexico and South America or other parts of the world here. But at that time, it was different. And so my parents were always working. And what ended up happening was that I was being raised by either a nanny, an aunt, or a grandparent, right? And the experience to those people were not healthy experiences. They were actually very traumatic experiences for me. And the way that I was being treated by these sub-caregivers was unhealthy, right? And in some cases, like there's certain children that are being left with other caregivers and they have traumatic experiences. So for me, the fact that my parents were always working, they were never around to provide emotional, pour into me emotionally, build a strong foundation for me. So I felt like I was being raised in an environment where I was neglected, I was detached from my parents. There was abandonment. There was times where my parents, when they were sent to Mexico because of ICE and immigration, and they were gone for periods of time, and I was here by myself with the sub caregiver. And so there was all these things that play into it. So it did affect the relationships, how I was showing up in my interpersonal friendships and relationships, as well as romantic relationships. Okay. Now, my son's 15 years old. His experience was a lot different, even though his mother and I are divorced. But yet we both had an agreement that regardless of the fact that we're not together, we're going to primarily focus on his emotional development, his mental health stability, and make sure that he has a proper, solid foundation on love and support, and that we're present, and that we're supporting, and that we're there for his development. And so we got divorced when he was 6 years old, but yet because of the agreement that we both had, we've been able to pour into our son's emotional development and making sure that she's the one that had custody. And so she was obviously doing her part the majority of the time. And then when I had him, I was always doing my part, but then also making sure that I'm present for events at school, activities, making sure that when there's issues that came up or discipline or any of that, I was there, that I was able to guide him through challenges and struggles and some adversity. But we were both always working together to make sure that he knew that he had a supportive mother, supportive father, that he had love from his mother and his father. And as a result, today he's very well emotionally grounded. And I would say, as you're going to learn about attachment styles, that my son has what's called the secure attachment style, which is the healthy one out of the 4. And it's because of the fact that we both made a commitment to making sure that his emotional health is primary for us, right? Because we want him to be happy. We want him to know that he has loving parents, because there are some situations where parents get divorced, and there's a variety of reasons why people get divorced. And especially if the child's older, as I've have friends that have gotten divorced when they had their kids are teenagers, or kids around 10 years old and older, and they don't handle it very well. These kids struggle with divorce, and they are having difficulty making sense why the parents are getting divorced, and why can't mom and dad stay together, and why are they fighting, and why are all these things happening, and why is, we're all living together now, I have to be living in another place, another location, and dad lives or mom lives in a different location. And now that I'm being raised in a single family home, now that means that I see less of my mom or my father because they're working, and now I have to be raised at a daycare or after school program, or I don't have a primary caregiver. Now I have somebody else raising me, and yet I rarely get to see my parents, and now that affects them. It affects them more because they're a little bit more aware of the changes that have happened, because they were raised in the two-parent family home, and then something happened that caused their parents to split up, and now the dynamics change, as well as the relationship between the parents and the children is different now, because the mom has to put food on the table, right? Depending on their situation. And so these things influence our psychology, our emotional well-being, and also shape our perspective and our worldview, and also influence how we perceive others. Okay, so quote, early experiences in childhood have an important influence on development and behavior later in life, by the founder of attachment theory, John Bowlby. So again, early experiences in childhood have an important influence on development and behavior later in life. So the founder of attachment theory is John Bowlby, and he is a British psychologist, and very grateful for his groundbreaking theory on attachment theory, because he's been able to impact a lot of lives. A little bit about John was that at an early age, because child development, the theories of child development at the time that he was growing up were very different. And so child development theory in his time, in his generation, there was this argument that parents shouldn't provide too much attention and love and support to their children, because that's not going to help them survive later in life. And so the theory was that parents had to allow their kids to struggle and learn to be independent and self-reliant, because that's going to help them later in life. Well, John's parents decided to send them to boarding school at an early age, which he later shares that was the most traumatic experience that he had, that really affected him a lot, was having his own parents ship him out to boarding school. And if you know a little bit about England, culture in England, a lot of times kids are being sent out to boarding schools or all male schools or all female schools at an early age, where the institutions are actually raising these children to become model citizens or productive citizens, and yet the parents only come and visit them every now and then. It's a very big, it's still to this day very big in Europe, and where a lot of parents actually send their kids away at an early age to be raised and to be cultured and to be taught manners and all these type of things. But John was very adamant about the fact that it really was a traumatic experience for him, and he didn't think that was very healthy, or that was very beneficial in any way. And I believe that experience influenced his career choice, becoming a psychologist, but also to look into this attachment theory and how it affects a child later in life, but also contribute to the field of child development to change it, right? Because it used to be that parents were told, don't be so lovey-dovey, don't smother your kid and all that. Well, now today it's flipped on the other side, in which now child development theory supports the fact that you want to support your child. You want to provide a solid foundation of emotion and love and support, and have a support system, and not necessarily become a helicopter parent, but guide them through the various phases of life, which is what I do with my son and my ex-wife, who's now a really good friend of mine. What she does with our son is that we guide our son through the various stages of his life. Now we're in high school, freshman in high school. So now we're guiding him and navigating him through this whole high school experiences that he's going to have. But prior to that, through middle school and then elementary and all these things and friendships. So our role is to be more of a guide, obviously his parents, but to guide him, to allow him to critical think, allow him to express himself, and to express his positive emotions, negative emotions. And we're here to help him understand those things, because we feel that we want him to understand, to know how to, manage his emotions, but also understand his emotions, but also have some sense of to experience his emotions, but also have some self-control over his emotions and understand human behavior and relationships and all that sort of thing, so that he knows how to respond and react. And then also he can have success in these relationships. So John Bowlby, as I mentioned, British psychologist and psychoanalyst who believed that early childhood attachments played a critical role in later development and mental functioning. His work, along with the work of psychologist Mary Ainsworth, contributed to the development of attachment theory. And I highly recommend that you get the book on Amazon.com. Get the book by John Bowlby and also Mary Ainsworth. That actually it's titled Attachment Theory. Get it, read it, understand it, share it with people, educate others, communicate it to anyone that's willing to listen and that is an open-minded person, and spread the word out about it and how it affects people. But I highly encourage you to get the book. So Bowlby believed that children are born with a biologically programmed tendency to seek and remain close to attachment figures. This provides nurturance and comfort, but it also aids in the child's survival. Sticking close to a caregiver ensures that the child's needs are met and that he or she is protected from dangers in the environment. So very important is that attachment theory speaks to the fact to where a child feels that they have a secure base, that they feel protected, that they feel protected from dangers and that or discomfort, right? So that's the key of attachment theory, is we're looking for safety. And a lot of times as adults, how it plays out as adult when we're children, when they're sensing danger, or have you ever maybe you've had this experience where you're being dropped off at school at an early age, and maybe you cried, and maybe you didn't want to go to school, preschool or kindergarten, and you wanted your mom and you didn't want to let go. And if you've ever gone to an elementary school and you can see that there's certain children that they don't want to let go of their parents. They're afraid of letting go of their parents so they can go to class. So they cling to them, they grab them, and they don't want to go. Other times, when a child is sensing danger, they're looking for their parents, and they go in and seek out their primary caregiver because they feel safe, right? So attachment theory has to deal with safety net, right? And as adults, when there's conflict, or when you're having a disagreement with your partner, or that person shuts down the conversation and disconnects from you, doesn't text you for a few days, doesn't call you for a few days, ignores your texts, ignores your calls, doesn't call you back, is exhibiting passive aggressive behavior. For some people, that's trauma, that's suffering, because now you're feeling danger. Now you're feeling like you're not in a secure base. And so now you're trying to, you're on the other end, you're texting them 20 times, you're calling them every 5 seconds because you're trying to get their attention. You're trying to get a reaction from them that lets you know that they're still there, that it's going to be all right, that you feel safe. And then once they reply back, then you go back to your secure base, right? And that's just one example of how kind of people react, right? Maybe you've met someone recently, or an experience where you've met someone and the conversation's going well, and then all of a sudden you don't hear from that person for a week. And then you start thinking, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? What did I do? Am I not good enough? And you start overthinking, and you start going through all these things in your mind. And then there could be other factors there, right? And because we want to feel valued, when in relationships, whereas children, the primary caregiver is our parents or whoever the adult is. In adult relationships, the attachment figure is then replaced by our romantic partner, or the attachment figure is replaced by a close friend, right? Your BFF, right? And so very fascinating stuff. So I hope that you're kind of getting it a little bit. So sticking close to a caregiver ensures that the child's needs are met and that he or she is protected from the dangers in the environment, right? So what is attachment? Attachment can be defined as a unique emotional bond between a caregiver and child that involves an exchange of comfort, care, and pleasure. Okay, our early attachment styles are established in childhood through the infant caregiver relationship. Okay, so characteristics of attachment: proximity maintenance, safe haven, secure base, as I was just talking about a little while ago, a few seconds ago, and separation distress. So proximity maintenance, safe haven, secure base, and separation distress, right? Think back to a close attachment figure that you have, and what emotions were triggered, or how did you feel when there was a separation when you were in a situation of separation distress, right? You text somebody and they don't text you back for hours. You call someone, they don't call you back, right? Maybe you got into an argument. Maybe there was a disagreement. Maybe it was a breakup, right? And you want them back. Or maybe they're in a meeting and you're trying to get a hold of them. And because they don't respond immediately, we live now in a culture where it seems that we want immediate gratification. So we expect people to respond. If I text you right now, I expect you to text me back in 5 seconds. And if you don't text me back in 5 seconds, well, what's the problem here, right? And so we want this immediate gratification, and a lot of it has to do because of the social media, immediate gratification, and self-gratification world that we live in today. We expect immediate response to people when we're trying to communicate or reach out, right? So proximity maintenance, that is the desire to be near the people we are attached to. Some of us in relationships, we want to be near the people that are attachment figures a lot. And you may have that type of a disposition where you want to spend a lot of time with someone. There are some people that don't want to spend a lot of time with somebody, and they don't want to get too close. And so they are fine with only seeing you or spending time with you once in a while, once a week, or having, minimal contact, minimal physical presence, right? There are people like that. And so which one are you? Are you the person that desires to be near the people you are attached to? And how often and how much do you want to be close to the people that you're attached to, right? Keep that in mind. Safe haven. It's returning to the attachment figure for comfort and safety in the face of a fear or threat, which explains why when we have a bad day at work, when we have some type of a problem with our family, our parents, our siblings, we get into arguments with friends, somebody upsets you at the grocery store, you have a problem at work with an employee, we always return back to our safe haven, which is the attachment figure who provides comfort and safety. They listen to us, they validate, they affirm our feelings and that sort of thing. Secure base, the attachment figure acts as a base of security from which the child can explore the surrounding environment. When the attachment figure, whoever that attachment figure is to you, when they provide as a secure base to you, when you feel that, okay, we're in a good place, we're good, they're providing me the love and attention, and they make me feel safe, and we're good, right? Then that allows you to know that everything's fine at home, or with my secure base, that now I feel free and confident and excited about exploring the surrounding environment. I can pursue my goals. I can go to school, I can start my new business, I can venture out, I can do things because everything is safe in the secure base, right? As long as the relationship between you and your attachment figure, everything's all good, then that gives you the freedom to go explore and be curious about the things around you because you don't feel threatened. There's no danger there, right? But when there's problems, when there's conflict and there's no secure base there, how many of you think back to your last relationship, or if you're currently in a relationship and you've had a bad argument or a disagreement, or maybe you've broken up, or maybe your partner pissed you off, so you blocked them and you cut them off, and now you're being passive aggressive, and now you're not communicating. Notice how conflict in a relationship or conflict with your attachment figure, it can literally paralyze you. It can literally cause you to drop out of school, call in sick at work, not want to go to the gym, not want to take care of yourself. Now you're sitting on the couch and binging on movies and carne asada fries and stuffing yourself with ice cream and donuts. You're eating all the wrong shit, right? You're starting to let go because it paralyzes you, right? Because that's how emotionally connected we can get, to where it can literally paralyze you and cause you to affect every aspect of your life, right? Because you're paralyzed, right? Because now you have anxiety, now you're depressed, now you don't want to go work out, you don't want to do anything. And then once you get a phone call or a text, somebody says, I miss you, baby, come back, whatever. Now you feel like you're fucking Wonder Woman or Superman, and you want to conquer the world now, right? Because everything's all good with the secure base, right? So any of you had any of those experiences or any of those reactions, or any of you had a moment where you felt paralyzed? Separation distress. Anxiety that occurs in the absence of the attachment figure. And this is imagine when you were a child and your parents went off to work, and your parents dropped you off at school, or your parents left you at the store and forgot that you were with them at the store, and they took off, right? They forgot about you in the grocery store, in the market, or at the mall. Or when you and your partner, as an adult, again, you have a separation for a variety of reasons, and it causes anxiety because you miss that person. You miss contact with that person. You can't sleep at night. Your ass is wide awake at 2 or 3 in the morning because you can't sleep, because your mind is racing with all these thoughts and creating all these scenarios in your head. And you wake up with anxiety, and you have anxiety throughout the day, and you're checking your phone all the time. And am I getting a text? Are they calling me, right? All because of the separation distress. There's 4 types of attachment styles. The first one is secure attachment. The second one is anxious attachment. The third one is avoidant attachment. The fourth one is disorganized attachment. So secure attachment, there's 2 columns, children and as adults. So the first one is the first column as children. As you can see, little or no separation anxiety or emotional distress when parent leaves. So the child, a secure attached child, has little or no separation anxiety or emotional distress when the parent leaves, right? Because again, both parents or one of the parents is involved, engaged, is pouring into their child, providing love, attention, right? Security. The child seeks proximity on return of parents, self-regulates emotions and thoughts, appropriate boundaries in relationships with parents, easily expresses emotion to parents. Let me ask you this. Do you find it that if you're a secure attachment, are you able to easily express your emotions to your parents? Were you able to express your emotions growing up in your teens or in elementary school? How about now as an adult? Are you able to express your emotions with your attachment figure, whether that's your romantic partner, right? Can you express your emotions, or do you struggle with sharing your emotions, right? A secure attached individual finds it easy to express their emotions. So as an adult, how secure attachment shows up, it says that relaxed and comfortable in the company of loved ones, relaxed and comfortable in alone or in company with loved ones, easily expresses emotion to loved ones, appropriate boundaries in close relationships, and seeks social support and shares feelings with others. Okay. Caregiver behavior of a secure attachment person, right? So if a child is secure attachment, this is the caregiver behavior that the child experienced growing up. Respond appropriately, promptly, and consistently to the needs of the child. Caregiver has successfully formed a secure parental attachment bond to the child. Is that you? Ambivalent attachment, also known as anxious attachment. So depending on what book you read or articles that you read, they interchange between anxious attachment and ambivalent attachment is the same thing. So as children, an anxious attachment child experiences separation anxiety and emotional distress when the parent leaves, not easily consoled by return of the parent, dysregulated emotions and confused thoughts, lack of boundaries in close relationships, tendency towards sudden tantrums and rages when cannot get their own way. As adults, an anxious attached adult, they suffer from fear of abandonment by loved ones. They fear abandonment. As adults, an anxious person is needy and clinging with the partner. Do you are you clingy or needy with your partner? Are you texting your partner 20, 30 times, calling them 5, 6 times, constantly want to, spend all your time 24/7 with your partner? Or does your partner do that to you? Is he or she texting you a lot frequently, always want to be around you, always want to do everything to you, even to go to your haircut or go get your nails or, go to the barber or whatever. They always want to be around you. Is your partner needy or clingy? Swinging between idolizing and devaluing loved ones. That's huge. Mood swings and difficulty regulating emotions. Experiences intense anxiety in relationships, inappropriate sense of emotional and physical boundaries. That's an anxious person. Caregiver behavior that the anxious attached child experience. Little or no response to distressed child, discourages crying, and encourages independence. Avoidant attachment is the opposite of anxious attachment, and that is the avoidant of contact with parents who may be emotionally unavailable to children, does not seek closeness with parents, prefers to seek own company, shows little preference for parents over strangers. As adults, avoidant of contact with loved ones, emotionally unavailable to own children, does not seek closeness with loved ones. As adults, withdraws from confrontation, shows little preference for company, difficulty expressing emotions. Are you in a relationship with someone that's avoidant attachment, in which that individual is literally creating a lot of space between you and that person, where they don't want to have a lot of contact with you. They don't want to spend a lot of time with you. They have difficulty getting close or expressing their emotions or getting close to you. Do they seem disengaged? Do they seem emotionally unavailable? Right? Do they seem like they say all the right things, but then their words and their actions don't match up? Or are you that person? Are you that person that, I'm very independent, I'm self-reliant, I don't need anybody, and I'm good alone, and I don't like asking for help, and yet you do want love? Because these avoidant attached people, the funny thing is that although they want a lot of distance and they're afraid of connection and they're afraid of emotion, being vulnerable and being emotionally available and to have a connection, they want all that, except that they are an avoidant attachment, which means that they have difficulty being that. They don't necessarily want to be distant or to have lack of connection. They want the closeness and the love and all that too, but because of their childhood upbringing, they're wired to they don't trust their partner, in the sense that the reason why they want distance is because they don't want to be rejected. They don't want to be on the end of rejection. They don't want to be rejected, or they don't want to be abandoned, or they don't want to be the one that their partner leaves them, right? And so it's easier for them to, the more distant they are, the more space between their partner and them, the better I am, because I'm not going to get emotional. And if they leave, cool, they leave and I'm good. But they're not good. It's a facade. It's fake. It's a fake wall, because they do desire closeness. They do desire to express emotions and be in love. But the problem is, because they were growing up with a parent that didn't provide them with emotional support and all that, that they grew up as adults thinking that I'm independent and I don't need nobody. Okay, then be alone. Go be alone with yourself. Go play with yourself in your own little sandbox, right? If you're so independent and self-reliant, do you then? But then you'll find that those people always come back. The funny thing is that an avoidant person, once they break up with somebody, right, because the other person's getting too close, or the other person wants more and they can't provide that, so they leave, they cut off the relationship with them, but then they always come back. They come back to the other person. And then you have what's called a cycle between the avoidant person always coming back, and then the anxious person who wants closeness to somebody. So Matt, picture this: an anxious person, an avoidant person. Anxious person wants closeness, avoidant person wants space. Get away from me, I don't want to be too close. But then when this anxious person pulls away, because they're like, well, I guess I got to let you go, or they pull away, right? Because they're now being needy, they're now being clingy, they pull back. And then what happens is the avoidant person's like, well, where's that needy person that was always calling me and texting me, and why aren't they calling me and texting me? So then they come back and like, hey, how you doing? I miss you. And then it's a damn loop, right? It's a loop until one of them says, well, this isn't working out for the both of us. But it can work for both of them, but they have to both be willing to look at this theory and look at their attachment style and say, yeah, you know what, I'm an avoidant. Yes, I'm an anxious attached person. It's not the best healthy scenario for a relationship, but I do care about you. I do love you. I want to make it work. But now that I know that you're avoidant and you're anxious, let's figure out a way in which I don't want to be a burden or make you feel like I'm smothering you or like I'm overwhelming you, but I want to give you your space and all that. But understand that I also need connection and all that. So you kind of you find a way to work it together, right? Because if you do care about each other, you're going to try to figure it out. And my two students that I was talking about earlier, the boyfriends were anxious attachment and the females were the avoidant attachment. Usually the anxious attached individual is primarily female and the avoidants are usually males, but we're living in a society now where we have feminism, we have all these other theories, and now women are much more independent and self-reliant and women are more masculine. And so it's interesting the dynamics that the males, there's more males now being anxious attachment and women are being avoidant attachment, right? And it's an interesting dynamic. And maybe you're in that situation. If you're a female, ask yourself, are you an avoidant attachment? Do you feel like you're having difficulty being emotionally available and connecting and having that close connection, and you want a lot of space? And does your man want a lot of closeness, or your other partner? So very interesting stuff. So I hope you're finding this fascinating. So caregiver behavior and avoidant attachment towards an avoidant attachment individual, inconsistent between appropriate neglectful responses, generally will only respond after increased attachment behavior from the infant. Okay. Inconsistent appropriate behavior, inconsistent between appropriate neglectful responses, generally will only respond after increased attachment behavior from the infant. Okay, so do you fall into this camp? Disorganized attachment, that is where it's fearful attachment. It actually includes both the anxious and avoidant attachment in. So this is kind of this is a little bit more the challenging one. As children, fears close proximity to parents who can be physically or emotionally abusive, a mixture of avoidant and resistant or aggressive behaviors in proximity to parent, little or no sense of safety in relationships, complete inability to self-regulate emotion, seems dazed, dissociated, or confused. As adults, fears close proximity or intimacy in relationships, fears showing vulnerability, extreme rage or anger responds to confrontation or threat, expresses little or no empathy with others, and little or no understanding of personal boundaries. So this is where your psychopath, your narcissist, your toxic individuals are, people with big ass egos, right? So this is their disorganized attachment. So next time you see someone that's a narcissist, they have a big ass ego, and they exhibit any of these types of behaviors, you can say, oh, that fool's disorganized attachment, right? So it shows, you will see that, right? Because as you're going to learn later in the modules, when I introduce you the cognitive triangle from psychology, you're going to see that every individual has certain thoughts, certain emotions, certain behaviors, and they all have certain patterns, certain tendencies, and certain triggers, right? So when you see people react in certain situations, environments, or scenarios, those are clues as to what's going on in their thoughts, what's going on in their emotions, what was triggered, and also what could be their attachment style, right? And then when you see this, you will self-regulate your emotions because you're not going to be affected by it, because you know why this person is reacting this way. So a caregiver behavior of someone who's disorganized attachment, this is a child that grew up frightened or experiencing frightening behavior from their parents or primary caregiver, intrusiveness, withdrawal, negativity, role confusion, communication errors, passive aggressiveness, maltreatment, very often associated with many forms of abuse towards the child. Okay, so how attachment style affects us as adults. It affects us by how we connect with someone romantically as adults, how we emotionally respond when a loved one is separated from us, how we react behaviorally when there is a conflict in a relationship with our attachment figure, how we communicate or fail to communicate in a relationship and interpersonal relationships. It affects us by the form of triggers, unhealthy habits, the emotional pain and suffering we experience or cause on ourselves. It affects our moods. And in some cases, it could paralyze us. And it can lead us to once you understand what your attachment style is, you'll know that based on your attachment style, there's the part of your brain, it's called the activation system, activated attachment system means that if you're an anxious attachment person and you're with someone that's an avoidant attachment, and that person does something that triggers your attachment system in your brain, you're automatically going to go into certain patterns modes, and you're going to do these certain patterns. And that's because the amygdala part of your brain, the fight or flight response of your brain, is activated by your attachment figure's behavior or comments, in the way they're treating you. And then that activates the fight or flight response. And then if you're anxious attachment, you're going to behave in predictable patterns according to your attachment style. You're going to say certain things. You're going to, behave in a common pattern familiar to anxious attachment people, and you're going to do certain things that are going to try to get back to that secure base, right? Because you're sensing danger, you're sensing anxiety, you're sensing frustration, you're overwhelmed, you can't think, you're starting to have panic attacks, and you want to get back to that secure base. And so you're going to behave and do things that are going to try to get the attention of the avoidant attachment person. And then the more that you behave in that way, it's going to scare them off, and it's going to cause them to shut down. It's going to cause them to disconnect, to be distant with you. And then they're going to, then it's going to go back to the loop, right? And so very fascinating stuff. I hope you found it interesting. But now, so in the module 1, under attachment style, and I'm going to publish this as soon as I upload the video, but essentially, again, understanding how your attachment style shapes and influences your intimate relationships can help you make sense of your own behavior, how you perceive your partner, and how you respond to intimacy. Identifying these patterns can help you clarify what you need in a relationship and the best way to overcome problems. So I've uploaded 4 videos. They're very short. I think all the videos are less than 13 minutes or less than 15 minutes. And so I want you to watch them all. Okay, they're all different. And for some of you that are visual learners or auditory learners, so you respond better to watching a video or listening. So the first one is going to go over attachment theory, and the person is going to talk about attachment theory from the perspective of a child. So the examples in there are going to be from a child perspective, right? Now, so watch that one. Then the second one, how childhood attachments affect adult relationships. This one is going to, again, talk about the different attachments, but it's going to provide examples of how the various friends of yours and the different experiences, the way their friends were raised, how it all affects them later as adults. So it does provide, think of this as from birth to elementary, the second video from elementary to teenage to high school, and how it's going to affect them. And then I want you to watch the third video, how attachment theory, how your childhood affects your love style in romantic relationships. And I really like this one because the person who did this video uses different characters from films, like Robert Downey Jr. As is it Iron Man? I don't really watch a lot of Marvel movies, so I think he's Iron Man, right? So it uses examples from the movie Iron Man to show how his attachment style and how the patterns, the tendencies, how they behave, right? How they behave in interpersonal relationships or romantic relationships. So then there's the 4 different attachment styles. And I think one of them is Kyle Loran from Star Wars. The other one is Matt Damon from Good Will Hunting. And then the other one, I forgot which one it is. And so, Captain America. And then there's the secure attachment, right? So the beauty of this video is that it actually, he explains what the attachment style is, but then he shows you through the characters in these different movies how it manifests, how the attachment style manifests as adults. And that, I think, is powerful because it'll give you a better understanding of the theory and how do you see yourself in any of these attachment styles? Do you behave in this manner and that sort of thing, right? And then the last one, which I think this person does a really good job of explaining the 4 attachment styles in romantic relationships. So he really goes a little deeper like what I did, and he explains the different ways that it shows up in relationships. So I want you to watch all 4. And then I want you to take this quiz. Take the quiz. It takes 5 minutes, answer all the questions, be honest, and then figure out what your attachment style is. And then I want you to take notes and write down your thoughts, emotions, triggers, awareness, any experiences that you recall while watching the 4 videos. Take note of your own emotional reactions, your fears. As you're watching these films, these videos, take note of how you're reacting. Take note of the emotions you're feeling. Take note of things that pop up into your head as you're watching this. Does something resonate with you? Does something trigger you? Right? And then I want you to write those thoughts down and start gathering your thoughts. And then the assignment is, using the MLA style, write a 3-page essay about your attachment style. Define it. I want you to define what your attachment style is. Tell me what it is. And then I want you to explain it, and then how you as an adult today, do you manifest or exhibit those behaviors and patterns of your attachment style, and how has it contributed to the challenges and obstacles in your relationship, romantic relationships. If you've never had a relationship, then write about your relationship with your parents. How your attachment style affects your communication style. Does it cause you to be passive aggressive? Do you break down in communication? Do you shut down? How you react when you're triggered? What are some of the behaviors that you exhibit when you're in a period of detachment distress, right? When you're separated from your attachment figure, what are the things that you feel? What are the things that you want to do? And also, what did you learn about yourself? Any self-awareness, self-discovery? How is this knowledge going to help you moving forward to becoming a secure attachment figure and an effective communicator? How will this knowledge help you understand your romantic partners, your interpersonal relationships? And then please make sure that you check your grammar, punctuation, cite your sources in the body of the essay, and write a bibliography using MLA format. What I'm looking for is, again, 3 pages. I believe MLA styles, 12-point font, double space, or something like that. I want you to have an introduction, a body, a conclusion. I want you to be clear in your introduction, have a thesis statement. I want you critical thinking. I want you to be insightful, articulate, give examples, help me understand your thinking process, and, enlighten me, right? I want you to articulate yourself, critical think, right? And I want your essay to flow. Okay, I don't want it rambled all over the place. I want you to really, cite examples of your own examples. Tell me how you reacted. Why do you think you reacted that way? What could you have done different? I want to be understanding you, right? Now, some of you may have some discomfort about disclosing personal things. I don't want, disclose what you can or what you feel comfortable with. No one's going to see it but me. But, and you don't have to use an extreme example, but you can use other examples, right? But if I would like you to show me that you understand the theory and how it has influenced you and shaped you to be the person you are today, and how you've behaved in ways described by the theory, and does this accurately explain you in your one part of your identity and your personality and self concept about yourself and how you're wired and showing up in your relationships. And then lastly, I've provided a link to the MLA format. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's due the 29th. So you have a little over a week to work on it, and you're going to have to upload it on Canvas in Microsoft Word or PDF, okay? And then it's this is going to be 25 points. So I'm going to upload this video very shortly. As soon as it's done recording, I'm going to upload it, and then you'll have it there, but it's going to be available, okay? So that's today's assignment. And again, I'm excited to read your essays. I'm excited to see what your own experiences are and what you think about the attachment theory, and also to learn a little bit more about what your attachment style is. And my attachment style, for those of you, is anxious attachment. So the relationship that I was in before, she was an avoidant attachment style person. So it was constant loops, right? And, once I read this book and I've learned more about the theory and learned about my own attachment style, I've now been able to evolve and grow from an anxious attachment style, moving towards a secure attachment style. And now when, this person communicates or reaches out to me in a predictable pattern of hers, now I understand why she does that. And now I understand how to communicate more effectively to her to make her feel secure based, but also knowing that I'm now able to articulate and communicate effectively what my needs are and what my expectations are, and how to work this together. So regardless of what your attachment style is, it is possible to move from your attachment style to a secure attachment style, but you will come out of this a better communicator, more understanding of human behavior and how people are influenced by their attachment style, and learn to adapt and learn to have empathy and compassion and understanding and self-awareness. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture video. Please email me, send me comments, let me know what you think. And again, I'm excited to read your essay, and I will be working on the Big 5 personalities. I'm almost done with it, so I will get that uploaded so you can work on it. And then I will be releasing the archetype discussion board next week. All right, so thank you, everyone. Reminder, read the chapters, take the quiz, and thank you again for listening to this, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Have a great weekend. Be safe.